fucker. Dude, Max Holloway is a real fucking warrior. I mean, to the core. That guy relishes it. He loves it. When he was like chicken necking at Aldo and he's got his hands down, he's talking shit to him and stalking him, you could see it in Aldo's face like he was drowning. You could see the waves were coming and he knew he wasn't going to be able to dog paddle for too long. Like, he's like, Jesus Christ, like, how am I going to keep up with this guy? And the thing about Max Holloway that's so interesting is he in a lot of ways, he has that sort of Nick Diaz approach where he's not hitting you with all of his might. He's not throwing these haymakers unless he's got you hurt. Until he's got you hurt. Once he's got you hurt, then he's just fucking whipping bombs your way. But until then, he's just constantly on you, just constantly peppering you, constantly on you. Kick, knee, punch, move forward. And you're just dealing with him and trying to breathe. You don't get any breath. And he just keeps that.
When you get a Charles Oliveira fight, you're getting ready for a fight, you know, and then when you're watching one of my fights, you know there's going to be a fight. So it's going to be fireworks, you know, here March 7th in Las Vegas. It's going to be good fun. Brazilian fans, please tune in. March 7th. I think it's going to be March 8th for you guys, I believe. Tune in. It's going to be fireworks. Me and the legend is going to do some work in there, and it's all.
The entire MMA world is about to witness something absolutely wild. Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira is officially happening again, and I'm telling you right now, this rematch is going to settle one of the biggest debates in combat sports. We're talking about a fight that's been living rent-free in every hardcore fan's head since their first encounter back in 2015. But here's the thing that's got everyone going crazy. Half the MMA community is convinced that blessed Max is going to drown Oliveira just like he did before. The other half is screaming that Charles has evolved into a completely different beast, a monster that Holloway has never actually faced. And you know what? They're both right. This isn't about relitigating some old fight from nearly a decade ago. This is about figuring out which version of these elite fighters would dominate if they stepped into that octagon tomorrow. Because what I'm about to break down for you is going to change how you see this entire matchup.
Versus Oliveira at UFC 326. Who do you think leaves with that BMF belt?
I got my eye on that one, man. I think Max gets the win. I think Oliveira is coming off of a pretty devastating knockout and turned around real quick, jumped into another training camp, and I got my eyes set on that BMF belt if Max wins.
Joe Rogan absolutely nailed it when he described Max Holloway as the most relentless pressure fighter in the featherweight division. But here's what makes Holloway truly terrifying, and what Rogan emphasizes every time he calls one of his fights. This dude has supernatural flexibility and movement that defies logic. We're talking about a fighter who can seamlessly attack from both orthodox and southpaw stances, sometimes switching mid-combination like he's playing a video game. Rogan specifically points out how Holloway will throw a left hook, immediately switch stances, cut an angle and fire off a straight right, all in one fluid motion. Most fighters telegraph their stance switches. Holloway does it so smoothly that opponents don't even realize what's happening until they're getting lit up from a completely different angle. And get this, even when he absorbs shots, which he does because of his aggressive style, he doesn't retreat or reset. He compresses, absorbs the impact, and keeps moving forward without missing a beat. It's like watching someone who's programmed to never stop coming forward, no matter what you throw at him.
Excellent footwork, combinations, cuts angles well, reads the fight. That's the main thing, you know what I mean? He reads the fight, so yeah.
He reads the fight, and he's so good at implementing that strategy of like consistent pressure, constant angles, switching stances, and he switches stances flawlessly. Fights.
Now here's where the first fight gets absolutely fascinating, and Michael Bisping breaks this down perfectly. When these two met back in 2015, Holloway looked incredibly sharp from the opening bell. We're talking crisp combinations, beautiful lateral movement, and textbook takedown defense that made Oliveira's early wrestling attempts look amateur. Bisping specifically remembers how effortless Holloway made it look, dancing around Oliveira's shots and countering with precision striking. But then something bizarre happened that still has people talking today. In those final moments before the stoppage, Oliveira actually started finding his rhythm. He landed a couple of solid knees in the clinch and shot for a double leg that looked legitimate. Holloway countered with an underhook, turned Oliveira away from the shot, and appeared to be winning the exchange. Then suddenly, Oliveira went down clutching his throat. The referee stopped the fight just over a minute in, with most people believing Oliveira suffered some kind of throat or esophageal injury. To this day, nobody's entirely sure what happened. Was it a legitimate injury? Did Holloway land something we didn't see? The ambiguous ending left more questions than answers, which is exactly why this rematch has so much intrigue.
match. They did fight before. The first match went down in 2015 and the fight got underway. Max Holloway was looking really nice on the feet, using beautiful combinations, using excellent circular footwork to avoid the takedowns of Charles Oliveira. Charles was grabbing a hold of the tie clinch, dropping a couple of knees, shoots a double leg takedown. Max Holloway gets an underhook, spins him off him, uses the underhook, gets top position, and then Charles Oliveira seemingly injured. Apparently it was an esophagus injury, something to do with the throat, and that was that. The fight finished in 1 minute 39 seconds, and it was kind of uneventful. Okay, the fight was only just getting started, and it was very unfortunate for Charles Oliveira. Okay, yes, Max Holloway won the fight, but it wasn't like a knockout. Yes, it's down as a TKO, esophagus injury.
But here's what Bisping really wants you to understand about this matchup. This isn't just a fight, it's a collision of two completely different philosophies. Charles Oliveira operates with zero hesitation. He doesn't feel his way into fights or look for safe opportunities. From the moment that bell rings, he's coming forward with devastating Muay Thai, throwing bombs with bad intentions. And if this fight hits the ground, game over. Oliveira can end it instantly with his world-class jiu-jitsu. Bisping contrasts that ferocity with Holloway's mindset, and this is where it gets really interesting. After that brutal war with Justin Gaethje and the knockout loss to Ilia Topuria, Holloway didn't look for easy fights or rebuild opportunities. He immediately called out the most dangerous name available. That willingness to step directly into the fire, to face the biggest threats head-on, is why Bisping believes the BMF title actually means something when it's around Holloway's waist. This isn't about manufactured drama or promotional hype. These are two fighters who genuinely represent what that belt is supposed to symbolize.
Oliveira doesn't give a damn. He walks down his opponents. He's great on the feet. He's got big power. He's got excellent Muay Thai. And on the ground, he is an absolute wizard. He will just find a submission and take it. And Max Holloway, he's ready for the challenge. And that's what the BMF is all about. Look, listen, call it a weird, silly, made-up title. Call it whatever you want. But this is a fight, I believe, that sells itself. And I would love to see them challenge for the BMF belt. Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira, the rematch. This is a fight that I think everybody would love to see. And it just speaks about Max Holloway and this guy's attitude. Yes, he beat Justin Gaethje and then got knocked out against Ilia Topuria. And what's he trying to do? Is he trying to rebuild himself? Is he trying to look for easy fights? Is he trying to chip off a couple of people, get a couple of easy paydays? No. He's calling out the next guy up in the lightweight division. He's saying, yeah, I'll fight Charles Oliveira. That commands your respect, my respect, everybody's respect. And that's why Max Holloway, when the time comes, he will go down as one of the greatest fighters. I mean, the strategy that...
And Holloway himself has been crystal clear about what another win over Oliveira would mean for his legacy. This isn't just about settling old business or proving a point from 2015. Holloway watched how quickly the entire narrative around the BMF title shifted. It went from being dismissed as a gimmick to something that every elite fighter suddenly wants a piece of. That transformation proves the belt now carries genuine weight in the division. Holloway isn't running from the spotlight or the pressure that comes with being the BMF champion. He's embracing it because he understands something crucial about combat sports. When you give something real meaning, the hardest fights come with it. And those are exactly the fights that define legacies. He's not looking for easy defenses or favorable matchups. He wants the fights that matter, the ones that people will remember decades from now. That mindset is what separates champions from contenders.
To be able to defend the BMF belt once again, add to the legacy, have another win over Charles, just what would that mean for you?
It means a lot, you know. It's just hilarious to me. I'm sure it's hilarious to you guys. You know, a lot of guys, they looked at the BMF belt, and a lot of people talked a bunch about the BMF belt, and now every single person that ever talked about it is calling me out. So it's hilarious how it turned, and we're here now, and I'm just glad that we gave the BMF belt some meaning, because it should have, and.
But hold up, because MMA Guru sees this fight completely differently, and his reasoning might shock you. Guru is leaning heavily toward Charles Oliveira, and it's all about the wrestling evolution that most people aren't talking about. He points out that Oliveira's takedown entries look absolutely nothing like they did in 2015. We're not talking about the same fighter who used to dive for sloppy back takes or rely on basic trips. This version of Oliveira gets deep on the hips, locks his hands with incredible strength, and actually lifts opponents clean off the ground. Guru highlights specific moments against elite competition where Oliveira showcased brute strength in clinch situations that simply wasn't part of his game before. Against fighters like Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler, we saw Oliveira dominate in double underhook positions, controlling much larger, stronger opponents through pure technique and leverage. With these cleaner, more powerful entries and vastly improved ground control, Guru believes Oliveira can put Holloway on his back early and find a submission before the fight ever settles into a rhythm.
How does Max versus Charles go? I'll go Oliveira, chat. Who else is very impressed with his takedown entries that he's added to his game? Even when he went for it on Ilya and went for the 50-50 throw, I was like, oh my god, dude, he's strong in this double under position. He's never been like that before. He always used to shoot in and try and get the back from it and fail to take down. Like, he was never picking up Gaethje and dunking him or getting his hands behind the arse of Poirier and getting his hands connected and dunking him down. It was very throw and trip oriented, but he's now like getting in on the hips, hands connected, picking him up. Picking up Gamrot like that, even though Gamrot balanced and stayed in a good position and then eventually gave up his back anyway. His entries are a lot better. So I think he would get down Max in 7.
Now here's where it gets really interesting, because Guru also acknowledges that Holloway isn't helpless on the ground anymore. His offensive wrestling has improved dramatically since their first fight. Against Ilia Topuria, Holloway demonstrated clear ability to not only defend takedown attempts, but actually counter and score takedowns of his own. That's a massive development that changes the entire dynamic of this rematch. But there's something deeper happening here that Guru picked up on. Since that knockout loss to Topuria, Holloway has undergone a mental transformation. He's more aggressive, more outspoken, carrying this sharper, almost bitter energy that you can feel in his interviews and social media posts. That combination of refined skill and intense attitude makes him a much more dangerous version of himself. The question is whether that new aggression makes him better, or if it leads him to take unnecessary risks against a submission specialist like Oliveira.
In the first round, I don't think, anyway. I don't know. I think he'll actually be able to get takedowns because his offensive wrestling has massively improved. And watching Ilya shooting on the hips of Holloway, pick him up and dunk him on the ground like that in round 1, with Oliveira's pressure earlier, I can see that working for him. Max Holloway has turned into a trash talker since the KO. Yes. Thank you for the 2. He has, hasn't he? He really has gotten a lot more bitter. He was saying, you know, Oliveira did some BS injuries, 1-0 down. We got some shit to solve. I like it, though. I like that.
Moreover,
Michael Chandler is keeping an incredibly close eye on this fight, and his perspective on the BMF stakes is fascinating. Chandler leans toward Holloway, but his reasoning goes beyond just fight analysis. He points out that Oliveira is coming off a brutal knockout loss to Islam Makhachev and immediately jumped into another demanding training camp. That tight turnaround could leave him a crucial step behind, especially against someone as relentless as Holloway. Chandler sees Holloway as being in peak form right now, both physically and mentally sharp, ready to capitalize on every opportunity. But beyond the technical aspects, Chandler frames this as Holloway's chance to claim a prize that has genuinely grown in significance. The BMF belt now carries real weight and history. For Chandler, this isn't just about who wins on the scorecards. It's about who walks away with momentum and a cemented legacy. The winner doesn't just get a belt. They get positioned for massive fights and opportunities that come with being the face of the most violent division in the sport.
Versus Oliveira at UFC 326. Who do you think leaves with that BMF belt?
I got my eye on that one, man. I think Max gets the win. I think Oliveira is coming off of a pretty devastating knockout and turned around real quick, jumped into another training camp, and I got my eyes set on that BMF belt if Max wins, so we'll see.
And Chandler makes another crucial point about Oliveira's journey that puts this whole fight in perspective. Even with limited UFC experience early in his career, Oliveira showed flashes of future championship potential. That promise exploded into reality with those definitive wins over Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. These weren't just victories. They were statements that showcased the full spectrum of his elite skill set. Chandler emphasizes that it's not just Oliveira's natural talent that makes him dangerous. It's the incredibly diverse path he's carved out, seamlessly combining devastating striking, world-class grappling, and elite submission skills. This multifaceted threat is exactly what makes him such a nightmare matchup for anyone, including Holloway. We're talking about a proven champion facing a fighter in peak form, with both carrying momentum, history, and everything on the line. The winner positions themselves for legacy-defining fights, while the loser faces serious questions about their future in the division.
So I had 2.5 minutes of UFC fight time under my belt. So I was green, I was inexperienced. I think a star was born that night. That was really the night whenever Charles became champion, and then he went on the run, and he beat Gaethje, he beat Poirier. He really became the champion and really solidified him.
But get this, Anthony Smith freely admits he has consistently underestimated Charles Oliveira, and every single time the Brazilian proves him wrong. Those stunning wins over Gaethje, Chandler, and Poirier transformed Smith from a skeptic into a believer. Smith used to worry about how hittable Oliveira appeared, especially given his heavy reliance on jiu-jitsu early in his career. Against elite strikers and wrestlers, that seemed like a recipe for disaster. Yet consistently, Oliveira demonstrates an uncanny ability to adapt mid-fight, control the pace, and neutralize threats that on paper seemed insurmountable. Smith points out that Oliveira's fight IQ is off the charts. He makes adjustments between rounds that completely change the trajectory of fights. Against Chandler, he got dropped hard in the first round, then came back and finished him. Against Poirier, he absorbed serious punishment early, then found the submission when it mattered most. That track record of overcoming adversity makes him a formidable challenge for anyone, including Holloway.
Man, this is another one of those fights where I need to do a better job of maybe listening to the masses a little less, because I picked against Oliveira versus Gaethje, I picked against Oliveira versus Chandler, I picked against him versus Dustin Poirier, and like every time he makes a liar out of me. And I think I weigh too much how hittable he is. That's the thing that's always bothered me. You get in there with a guy like Chandler, who can control where the fight happens because he's such a good wrestler and has got explosive power in his hands, and you're a guy who largely depended on his jiu-jitsu for a long time, who's hittable. Like, I don't know why you would pick Oliveira versus Chandler. And then you go Poirier, we're like, well, come on, this is Dustin goddamn Poirier. Like, he's the uncrowned champion, right? Who's great wrestler, defensively specifically, and got firepower in his hands. Like, okay, that seems like...
Smith continues by highlighting Oliveira's most underrated evolution, his striking development. Against that murderer's row of top-tier opponents, Gaethje, Chandler, and Poirier, Oliveira showcased striking that not only matches but sometimes surpasses his legendary grappling. What was once considered a potential weakness has transformed into a genuine strength. He can absorb shots, maintain pressure, and land clean, precise strikes while setting up his grappling game. Smith emphasizes that this combination of resilience, striking growth, and elite submission skills makes Oliveira a multifaceted nightmare. For Holloway, this represents a completely different challenge than their first encounter. He's not facing the same fighter who relied primarily on jiu-jitsu. This version of Oliveira can hurt you standing up, take you down at will, and submit you from anywhere. That's what makes this rematch so compelling and unpredictable.
Fair pick, like you probably pick Oliveira, and then Gaethje, you're like, well, come on now. Gaethje's a goddamn Division I All-American and dynamite on his feet. Why would you not pick Gaethje over Oliveira? And then he just, every time he changes the game. It's like sometimes it makes me feel like he listens to what I say and then he just does the opposite. Like, yeah. So I'm done. I'm going Oliveira because I think that his striking has caught up significantly to his grappling. I think that he's dangerous on his feet now than he hasn't always been that dangerous on his feet. I mean, how many wars have we seen Gaethje in and his ability to come back and still land even when he's hurt? I mean, he got sank, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. One shot, and then submitted. So honestly, he did the same to Chandler, and he just wore out Poirier. Like, was able to withstand. I mean, he took big shots against Poirier and was never shook. I think that his grappling.
And here's the kicker. AJ Fletcher looks at Charles Oliveira right now and sees someone operating at an entirely different level than anyone else in the division. Fletcher describes Oliveira as fully clicking, firing on all cylinders in every aspect of his game. Everywhere you look, he presents a fight-ending threat that keeps opponents guessing. Fletcher specifically points out how deceptively layered Oliveira's striking has become. While his foundation remains rooted in Muay Thai, he uses that base to set up precise boxing combinations that make him incredibly unpredictable. One moment he's throwing traditional Thai kicks and knees, the next he's slipping punches and countering with crisp boxing. That unpredictability, combined with the constant threat of takedowns and submissions, creates a puzzle that even elite fighters struggle to solve. Fletcher sees a fighter at the absolute peak of his craft, ready for anyone who steps into that cage. The question is whether Holloway's pressure and volume can overwhelm that technical perfection, or if Oliveira's evolution has reached a level that even the BMF champion can't match.
Hard to see anything going against Charles right now. The dude looks like a zombie, and his whole game, it's all come together. And he's got a weird style on the feet too. He's got like a Muay Thai style, but he's got very, very good boxing, and he almost uses his Muay Thai to, like, oddly enough, set you up for his boxing, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna rock with the champ.
So who do you see walking out on top?
So there you have it. We've got two elite fighters who have both evolved dramatically since their first encounter, each carrying legitimate paths to victory. Holloway brings relentless pressure, improved wrestling, and that new aggressive mindset that could overwhelm Oliveira's technical game. Oliveira counters with devastating striking, elite grappling, and a proven track record of adapting and overcoming adversity against the best competition. This isn't just about settling old business from 2015. This is about determining who represents the future of the most violent division in combat sports. The winner walks away with the BMF title, positioning themselves for legacy-defining fights and cementing their place among the all-time greats. Who do you think takes it? The relentless pressure of Holloway or the technical evolution of Oliveira? Drop your predictions and reasoning in the comments below, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button for the most in-depth fight breakdowns and analysis you won't find anywhere else. This rematch is going to be absolute fireworks, and I'll see you in the next breakdown. Wait, there's something absolutely crucial that nobody's talking about, and it could completely change this entire fight. The psychological warfare aspect of this rematch is off the charts insane. Think about what's running through Oliveira's head right now. He's facing the one guy who already beat him, the one loss that's been eating at him for nearly a decade. That kind of mental burden can either fuel a fighter to greatness or absolutely crush them under pressure. And here's what makes it even more intense. Oliveira knows that if he loses this rematch, especially if Holloway dominates him again, it essentially validates every critic who ever said his championship run was a fluke. That's the kind of psychological pressure that breaks fighters or transforms them into legends. Meanwhile, Holloway is dealing with his own mental demons that could make him incredibly dangerous. That knockout loss to Topuria wasn't just a defeat, it was a reality check that shook him to his core. For years, Holloway believed he was untouchable at featherweight, that his chin and conditioning were supernatural. Topuria shattered that illusion with one perfectly timed left hand. Now Holloway is fighting with something to prove, not just to the fans or the media, but to himself. That's either going to make him fight with reckless abandon, taking unnecessary risks to prove he's still elite, or it's going to sharpen his focus to a razor's edge. Either way, we're getting a version of Holloway we've never seen before. And here's where the stakes get absolutely bonkers. The winner of this fight doesn't just get the BMF title, they position themselves as the most exciting fighter on the entire UFC roster. We're talking about instant main event status, pay-per-view headliner money, and the kind of fan following that transcends the sport. Look at what happened after Holloway's war with Gietz. That performance didn't just win him the BMF belt, it reminded everyone why he's one of the most beloved fighters in the game. Now imagine if he backs that up by definitively beating Oliveira in their rematch. He becomes untouchable in terms of marketability and fan appeal. But if Oliveira wins, game over. He proves that his evolution is real, that he's not the same fighter who lost to Holloway in 2015. More importantly, he establishes himself as the most complete threat in the entire lightweight division. Think about it. A victory over Holloway, combined with his previous wins over Gietz, Chandler, and Poirier, creates a resume that's absolutely undeniable. He becomes the guy that every lightweight champion has to eventually face, the measuring stick for elite competition. That's the kind of position that leads to massive paydays and legacy-defining opportunities. Here's something that's flying completely under the radar but could determine this entire fight. The conditioning factor is absolutely massive, and it heavily favors one fighter over the other. Holloway's cardio is legendary, probably the best in the sport. This dude can throw over 100 significant strikes per round and somehow get stronger as the fight progresses. His body is basically a machine designed for sustained violence over 25 minutes. Oliveira, for all his technical brilliance, has shown cardio vulnerabilities in longer fights. If this fight goes into the championship rounds, if it becomes a war of attrition, Holloway has a massive advantage that could completely neutralize Oliveira's technical superiority. But here's the flip side that makes this so fascinating. Oliveira knows about his cardio limitations, which means he's going to come out with serious urgency. This isn't going to be a feeling-out process or a technical chess match. Oliveira is going to try to hurt Holloway early and often, looking for that knockout or submission before his gas tank becomes a factor. That creates an incredible dynamic where we might see the most explosive opening rounds in recent memory. Two elite fighters, both knowing they have limited windows to implement their game plans, throwing everything they have at each other from the opening bell.